fried chicken and french fries.
Welcome to another episode of Good Times and Bad Movies. I'm Paul Ireland. Joining me as always is my lovely co-host, Tim Fried Chicken and French Fries Morrison. How are you, sir?
I'm really good, Paul. How are you?
Really excited, Tim. Very, very excited because this is sort of a celebratory moment for you and I. So a little bit of history here. Tim and I, we started putting out episodes about a year ago. It was the end of September. So we figured that since, September's rolling around again here, that this has been 1 year of doing this full podcast, and we thought we would celebrate. So these next few movies here, and even since we're going into Halloween, the next 2 months, these are just going to be some weird, wacky movies, folks. So you better buckle up because we're going to be throwing some real curveballs at you here, I think. And we're going to start it off this month with 1990's Night Killer by Romana Cineproduzioni. As far as our show goes, Good Times and Bad Movies, I gotta say, this is quite a wacky movie, but it's also pretty wild here. This is like an Italian grindhouse kind of exploitation movie, I would say. There's gonna be all kinds of over-the-top violence and nudity and just general insanity within this movie here.
This movie is a gem.
If you were looking for movies that are top tier examples of bad movies, this is 100%, this has got to be in there. This is like a 9 on the scale of 1 to 10. It's got to be. But maybe we should give people a synopsis so they can kind of understand, or try as best as they can to understand what the hell is going on in this movie. So this movie is about a serial killer with a rubber-like Freddy Krueger mask that terrifies the city of Virginia Beach. That is the actual IMDb plot to this movie.
Okay, so this movie was directed and written by Claudio Fragasso. Claudio Fragasso is also famous in the bad movie world for making the movie Troll 2, which last week we said that The Room is the king of bad movies. Well, Troll 2 is The Room's grandfather. And one of the reasons why Troll 2 gained so much popularity is because it is just so bad. And it's also a sequel to the movie Troll that came out a few years prior. However, Claudio Fragasso used the title Troll 2 just to capitalize on the first movie. Troll 2 has nothing to do with the first movie, Troll. So much, in fact, that there's not even any trolls in the movie. Claudio Fragasso intended on making a psychological thriller. And after he was finished completing his film, the studio watched it and they said, it needs to be more slasher film-like. So they hired another director to record approximately 15 to 20 minutes worth of scenes and just shoehorn them into the movie. And these are scenes of killings, like things that you would see in a 80s slasher movie.
Yeah, it's like, I guess they just panicked and they were just like, well, what do you do, right? It's 1990, Freddy's pretty popular. Let's make a Freddy Krueger movie.
I think it's really cool because this movie is like Frankenstein. It's a Frankenstein movie.
And then I remember, Sue, we should explain this as well. Like, the reason why, at least I thought it would be fun for us to do this for the podcast, is before we even started Good Times with Bad Movies, you sat me down over Zoom and you showed me this movie. You're like, we have to watch this movie, Night Killer. And after an hour and 10 minutes, my mind was blown. I had no idea what the hell had just happened. And even to this day, I still don't really 100% understand what's going on in this movie. So hopefully we can kind of get somewhere with that today. But my goodness, there's only so many things in here that you can only explain to people by going sequentially, because none of this makes sense to anything else in this movie. This is an insane movie. This movie is crazy, and I love it. I love that this exists.
Yeah, this movie's a real treat. It's shocking, It's just awesome.
Yeah. So with that being said, maybe we just jump right into this. What do you say, Tim?
Let's go. The editing in this movie is very shoddy. This movie doesn't start with any titles or credits or anything. We just immediately start to, at first glance, you would think it's like an aerobics class, but it's actually a bunch of dancers on stage rehearsing. And the director is giving them instructions, and she is very, very frustrated. Some people aren't lifting their legs high enough. Some people aren't, according to her, getting into it enough. But they're all dancing their asses off, and she is just really upset. And here's what she sounds like when she's upset.
I don't know what to do.
What was that noise?
I don't know.
I gotta imagine that was that lady's creative decision to do that weird squeal.
I think it's ironic that she's a frustrated director at her class here for not rehearsing properly when it seems like she clearly hasn't rehearsed anything before filming this movie.
Yeah, that's fair. You know, this makes sense now that you mention that they went back and filmed like 20 minutes worth of extra stuff, because obviously this is part of the extra stuff they just tacked on here. And they probably just hired somebody that they found off the street to show up for day one. And they were like, you are apparently going to lead this choreography and you're very upset with these people and you need to have a smoke. Go. And then she just did that. And they were like, that's good. You know?
Yeah.
What I really think is funny about this dance troupe is the way they look. Have you ever seen the Fatboy Slim music video for Praise You, Tim?
Yes, I have.
This is exactly what these people look like. It's just a bunch of scrubs in sweatsuits that are just out of shape, and these people are dancing nonsensically. It's exactly like that music video. It's insane. It's horrible. And I wonder if Fatboy Slim just stole that. They were like, that's a great idea.
Praise You had way better choreography in it.
Yeah, that had the level of choreography in that was like some. And this movie is none. Everybody in this is just jumping around like a bunch of idiots on the stage here. And this is like the music that's going on in here too. Like, what the hell is this? You know, if you bought if you ever had like a Casio keyboard in the 90s, there would be a button on it that you would hit and a bunch of like preloaded little MIDI songs would just start playing. That is what this sounds like.
While they're rehearsing in this empty theater, one of the dancers is showing up late. The director is not very happy with her. However, she's still going to let her perform. So she goes to the dressing room. Meanwhile, the director's frustration has peaked and she decides to go and find her late participant. So we cut to the dressing room, and we're in a point of view from the killer. And we see him peeking into the room and watching this girl getting undressed. And we see his hand grab the door, and he has like a Freddy Krueger type hand. It almost looks like it's been burnt or something. It's some kind of a very weird prosthetic. So without having read the premise like we just did, when I first watched this movie, I thought that this person was an actual supernatural monster.
Oh yeah?
Well, I mean, it's one thing for a killer in a horror movie to wear a mask. That's pretty common. But we don't often see him put prosthetics on his hands.
Well, it's his weapon that he uses to kill people, I guess, right? It's like a glove, but it's a claw. You know what this is like? I think for the rest of this movie here, the whole duration of this movie, I'm going to refer to this killer. I've got two names I'm pitching here. One is totally not Freddy, okay, and the other one is copyright safe Freddy, because that's exactly what this is. This is just a Freddy Krueger copy, except they've just changed it enough that they probably won't get sued. The mask literally looks like they took a Freddy Krueger mask, painted it brown, and melted part of it, and put a googly eye over one of these things. It is ridiculous what this thing looks like.
So, this dancer here, while she's getting ready, she's startled when she turns around and sees the killer, and he takes his hand and shoves it right through her body. And she's dead.
Yeah, he just karate punches her with his claw.
Yes, he has a very, very powerful punch. So now the dance instructor, the director, is going to find the girl. And she finds the girl dead in her room and is immediately slashed by the serial killer. And he cuts her throat. And it would appear as though he cut her right at her larynx and she is unable to speak. So she's running away, and you can see her mouthing like "help me" and stuff like that, but she can't make any noise. And this goes on for way too long. Like, he is chasing her down the hall, down the stairs, up the stairs, into the balcony. And like, this seriously goes on for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, you know, it's just such a funny death this lady has here. Totally not Freddy. Slashes her in the throat. Then immediately the next shot, you see her throat. There is no cut on her neck at all, but she's like pretending like there is. Okay, there's not even like red lipstick. There's not even like a little nothing. There's nothing there. You can just see there's nothing going on. But as she like goes down the stairs, she's doing this move that to me looked like, you ever seen the musical Cats? That is she's doing like a cat's like strut down the stairs. It's like very theatrical. That's what it seemed like. They hired some extra and she's like, meow, meow, going down the stairs. And this guy just, again, like karate Wolverine punches her right in the gut and she dies. And it's so funny too, because 2 seconds ago, she apparently couldn't make any noise. But once he Wolverines her right in the gut, she screams at the top of her lungs and then falls over and everyone turns around and sees her.
Yeah. So this is where the movie actually begins. So like you just said, what we just described was obviously a part of the movie that was just shoehorned in. Because now we are at a very different tone for the film. Now it says Night Killer and we are in the bedroom of a child. And this guy named Sherman is showing up to this girl named Melanie Beck's house to give a Christmas present to Melanie Beck's daughter. Apparently he's a family friend. And he tells the little girl, Clarissa, that she's not allowed to open the gift until Christmas.
Clarissa and Sherman head off now for the day. God knows where they're going. But Melanie goes and she sits down and she turns on the TV for a second and she sees a report. And I'm assuming this is a report from the murder from the night before with the Night Killer. And they mentioned that one of these women was apparently sexually assaulted by the Night Killer before they were murdered. And we saw none of that in the scene before. And I just want to point that out because that happens in this movie a lot, where they keep saying this guy basically R-words these people before he kills them, like repeatedly. And every time you see them get killed in the movie, you just see him stab them in the chest, and that's it, and you walk away. So at what point does all that happen? Does any of this happen?
You're the kind of man that prefers to see that rape, huh?
No, I don't want to see that. But like, why do we even need that detail? I guess that's what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, I get you.
Listen, I don't want to see that in a movie at all, in any movie. Like, that's a vibe killer. That's horrible. It's gross. But like, why would you even bring that up if we don't even need that? We literally don't need this at all. Why do we need that detail?
So Melanie Beck is not fazed by this report. She just keeps on eating her cheese sandwich. And then she decides to go to her typewriter to do some work, I guess. And she gets a call from this menacing man. And he's sitting in a bar back to the camera. So we don't actually get to see his face. He's also wearing black leather gloves. Not sure why. Anyways, he's sitting at the bar and he's just saying, Melanie, where are ya? I want to see you. Where's Clarissa? So it seems as though that this is her husband and their marriage is on the rocks a little bit. He wants to know where Clarissa is, their daughter, and she says to him that Clarissa's in school. And her emotions go from 0 to 100, and it's pretty funny. So here's what that sounds like. By the way, this is not edited. This is exactly what it sounds like in the movie.
Yeah, that's very important to highlight that, Tim. Here we go.
Listen, I don't have anything to say to you except don't call me anymore.
So after that phone call with Melanie Beck's husband, Melanie is quite upset and she decides to start pondering some things to herself. And being that this is an audio form podcast, I thought it might be fun to try and play a clip, but use a little bit of a technique that television uses for accessibility for blind people. So we're going to play the clip, and I'm just going to describe to you the actions that are going on that you wouldn't be able to see because you're listening to this.
Sit back, relax, close your eyes, and we are going to paint you a picture of excellence.
This is directly after Melanie Beck hangs up on her husband. Melanie goes to the mirror. Melanie takes one part of her top off. Now she takes the other. Melanie is topless. Melanie is caressing her breasts.
Well, here you are, Melanie Beck.
She's still staring in the mirror at herself and touching herself.
This is you. You have a daughter. You have a marriage on the rocks, and
Now she takes her scarf off
nothing
and
but
loosens
gray
it a bit.
skies ahead.
What in the world is that all about? who goes into the mirror and starts like touching themselves and like verbally encouraging themselves as well?
The best part is like at the end of this, like the phone rings and she still has her breasts out and she answers it all serious. Is she having a I wonder if she's having a nervous breakdown or a crisis. I don't know what this is, and maybe she's just looking at her body and looking how time's aged her. Maybe that's what that's supposed to be. And this soap opera music that goes on behind this is hilarious what is going on in this movie, because it's just like we go from this weird non sequitur phone call of this guy who you just at that point learn it's just her husband, who's just Steinbrennered up, but it's Andrew Dice Clay, and she just immediately whips out her breasts in frustration and starts massaging them in a weird circular motion.
And while verbally encouraging herself in the mirror.
Yeah, what was the direction from this? Do you think that dude Claudio was like, hey, whip him out and just start having a hard time?
You know what I do to motivate myself every morning?
What's that, Tim?
You think people do that?
I mean, people respond to stress differently, you know. So maybe there's somebody out there.
That's true. We shouldn't judge her too much.
Her marriage is on the rocks, and you know, all kinds of other stuff's going on. There's a night killer out there, Tim. So
the phone rings, and Melanie Beck immediately answers and says, "Look, I told you to stop calling here," assuming that it's her husband. But actually, it's this guy in a really creepy voice. And he says, "Oh, Melanie, don't move. I like watching you like that with your top off." So this guy can clearly see her. You know what's funny about this scene? This is like, I'm guessing, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Scream had a lot of tension because of this girl alone at home really late at night. This is broad daylight afternoon. And this is 1990. People didn't have cell phones that you could like hide in your pocket or anything back then.
yeah, that's true. You had to be on a landline or at least some sort of phone that's physically attached to something. You just can't be sneaking around on people.
Right. Because Melanie Beck looks out the window and she sees a guy in the payphone booth directly across the street from her. And she doesn't say anything. She just turns around after the call's over. She turns around, sits down, and phones the police. We got to talk about this policeman.
Okay, yeah, I love. There's a lot of things here where I'm like, what is going on right now?
I'm pretty sure that this guy is like, he's probably on the set like working a camera or something, and they're like, "Hey, we need someone to play a police officer right away." And they just found this guy. By the way, Paul, did you notice his phone?
Yes. Okay. Yes. His phone. The cord is taped onto this phone
With Scotch tape.
What happened? Yeah. What is going on? What is the budget of this police station that you have to Scotch tape your cords up to keep them working here? Like, did they think you should fix your phone? It's a pretty important phone.
I think that's more indicative of the budget of the movie. Anyways, the cop tells Melanie Beck, he says, "I want you to lock yourself inside and don't open the door for anybody, okay?" And she goes, "Okay." He goes, "So you know what to do?" And she goes, "Yes, I'm going to lock myself inside and not open the door for anyone." He goes, "Okay, good. I'll call you back in 5 minutes."
So Melanie does what the cop says, and she hangs up the phone, and she goes and she locks herself in, and she lights a cigarette, and she's really worried now. And so this is really confusing, but really hilarious now. So what happens is we see a claw. We see the killer's, it's the very copyright safe Freddy Krueger claw that comes out now, picks up these keys, and she gets another phone call. And Melanie thinks that it's a police officer calling her back. However, it hasn't been this very specific time of 5 minutes. So she mentions that to this guy. And what is revealed is that it is actually the killer who's on the other line of the phone. And he's quite ecstatic that she has now locked herself into her apartment. So we just need to play you part of this dialogue.
I can't wait 5 minutes, Mrs. Beck. I'm too horny.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, in case you missed that, or are even questioning whether it was even real, the killer said, I can't wait 5 minutes, Mrs. Beck. I'm too horny. That's where we're at in this movie. By the way, we're only 10 minutes in.
In 10 minutes, we've had a bunch of nonsensical dancing. We've had a lady take her breasts out. We've had this gem now. That's the first 10 minutes of this movie.
This is just a pot of gold, I tell you. So it's revealed that the killer is actually in the home with Melanie Beck. We find out that he's been using one of her phone lines to call the other one in the house. And the second time he calls back, he does a very good job of playing the police officer. I just feel like the director and / writer of this movie was writing this and was like, oh my God, this is such a good idea. This is so clever.
This is like such a tired trope in horror movies that someone's calling from inside the house kind of thing. And you're right. I bet he thought he was like, I am so smart here. No one's ever going to suspect this. And they're gonna be so scared when they find out he's too horny to wait 5 minutes.
So what's funny about this, while he's standing behind her when he says that he's horny, and she slowly turns around with the phone still to her ear, and she sees him down the hallway, and he's still talking to her. They're both holding onto a phone and talking to each other while this is going on.
Yeah, and it's not like he just drops the phone and attacks her. He carries the conversation on for a good 10 seconds.
So Melanie Beck screams and runs down the hall away from the killer, and she goes to the door, but she can't get out because she locked herself in and doesn't have the keys. Now, I've never been to Italy. Maybe that's how the doors work there. I know the doors here in Canada, when you lock yourself in, there's a knob that you can turn to let yourself out with a key. You don't have to use a key from the inside of your house to lock your doors. But in this movie, they're playing off the idea that she cannot get out of the house now that she's locked herself in and doesn't have the keys, because the killer has the keys. So she is literally locked in her own house with the killer.
So Melanie is now frightened by this crazy guy. And so she runs up the stairs and she locks herself in a room. And she gets a gun out and she kind of fires a bunch of shots through a door. And she thinks she's got this night killer, I guess, this mysterious, copyright safe, not Freddy Krueger night killer. And she's kind of hugging the wall, looking at the door just very cautiously. And somehow, okay, you think there's only one entrance to this room. That's what it seems like. Or if there's two entrances to this room, you think you would lock both doors. But somehow this guy walks through a closet or a wall or something, or there's something. He comes around the corner and he's just now face to face with Melanie. And we cut to the hospital I guess it's a hard-boiled detective and a guy who's kind of like Dr. Loomis from Halloween, but it's not Dr. Loomis. And to me, this hard-boiled detective guy, this is my favorite character in this whole movie. I think this guy is hilarious.
We find out that this is actually sometime later. We didn't get to see what happened to Melanie Beck with that encounter with the night killer. However, now she is in a hospital. She's bruised, battered, and she has amnesia. And this doctor determines that she suffered so much trauma that her mind has simply just blocked out everything. So much so that she doesn't even recognize her own daughter. They bring Clarissa in with Sherman, her family friend earlier that brought the Christmas gift over, because he's looking after Clarissa now. because apparently her husband is just like out of the picture or something. And yeah, she doesn't recognize her daughter, which I've heard of cases where, you know, like people get certain types of amnesia, but it's more like kind of a recent amnesia. It's amnesia very specific to the trauma that happened. Like you don't remember the trauma. You block it out and you can't remember it. I've never heard of trauma happening to someone and they completely just forget who they are and everybody in their life. You know, with exception to actually like hitting your physical trauma, like hitting your head on something. But anyways, she's got severe amnesia now, and we find out through news reports that this guy Sherman here, who by the way has a big cut on his face now, is looking after Clarissa. Right after that scene, now Melanie Beck is just out and about. She decides to go for a drive in her convertible. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, wait. Was she not in the hospital like a day ago with apparently life-threatening injuries?
Yeah, like shouldn't she be like, if she got severe amnesia, you can't even recognize her daughter? Shouldn't she like have someone like maybe looking out for her?
How do you drive a car? And like her face, she's got like just a normal face. There was cuts on her face and stuff, and she had black eyes, and like there's nothing now. There's no black eyes. There's no cuts. This is like a day later. It seems like she's just cruising down the street now. This is insane. This whole scene is insane here, Tim. So like we really need to just explain what happens here, because what in the next 5 minutes, this is so wild and insane that I think if you told somebody this happens in a movie, they wouldn't believe you. They just wouldn't believe you that this actually somebody did this and wrote this.
So Melanie, who seemed to be out of full recovery but still has amnesia, is in a convertible driving down the street, and out of nowhere beside her who goes into like oncoming traffic, pulls up beside her parallel while they're driving. He has what looks to be like a quart of Jack Daniels in one hand while he's driving and downs it. And he's like, "Hey, wanna party with me? I bet you'd like to have a drink." And she's like, "Get away from me, scumbag," and speeds off. And he just starts stalking her.
Yeah, and this guy's dressed like Tim Allen, and he's driving a Jeep. This is insane what happens here, because you're right. I guess she pulls up into an apartment or something now, and he parks his car and gets out and chases her in a building.
So he walks into the building. He stands at the reception desk. Doesn't get acknowledged. He turns around and looks at the bathrooms and sees the women's bathroom. He's a stalker, so he decides just to walk right into the women's bathroom. So he doesn't see anybody in there except one of the stall doors is closed. So he goes over and opens it. As he opens it, Melanie Beck appears from out of nowhere, seemingly, and she has a gun and she points it at him. Melanie Beck points the gun at him. He puts his hand up and he says, "Sorry, I came in here by mistake." She's like, "What do you want?" He goes, "I just want some friends." So she says, "Take off your pants." He's like, "What?" And he goes, "You heard me, take them off." And she clicks her gun. So she basically makes him strip down to just this very tight, thin Speedo.
A blue Speedo with a giant fist coming out the front of this thing.
Yes. And she makes him throw his clothes into the toilet and flushes them. And then she says, "You're just like shit anyways," and runs out of the bathroom and leaves him there. So this stalker just got owned. Oh my gosh. We're barely 20 minutes in right now. So
and this little bulge that's sticking out.
it's an awful scene. So he decides that he's still going to chase her. After she runs out of this building, he runs out of the girls' washroom, through the lobby, and the receptionist stops and asks him, "Hey, dude, what happened to your clothes?" And here's the brilliant bit of writing that we have here. Here's his answer.
I got molested in the little boy's room.
Whew. What in the world is going on? Why did he say that?
Do you think that was written or improvised? I got molested in the little boy's room.
I have to assume that was in the script, because even even improvise. Gosh, maybe he's maybe he's really bad at improv, but I have to assume that that's in the script because that is so foolish to say. Why would anybody say that? A grown man. By the way, this man is easily in his like mid-40s. Right after he says that, he does a little skip and turns around and runs out of the lobby. And now he's back in his Jeep dressed.
Yeah, okay, I was glad you mentioned that there. He jumps into his Jeep and has a shirt on. He's putting a shirt on. He ran from, he just got molested in the little boy's room apparently, and then jumped into his Jeep with a shirt on. Where the hell did he get this shirt from?
Well, I feel like he probably had it stored in his car already because this happens to him all the time.
He's frequently molested in the little boy's room.
Well, that's just maybe it happens so much that he's just run out of excuses, and that's the line he uses.
You know what? It was funny too. I just thought about this too. Like he said, I got molested in the little boy's room, and he was in the women's washroom.
Yeah, he was in the girls' room.
This guy jumps into a Jeep, and he is now driving around Virginia Beach, looking for this woman, and he finds her at a beach. And the next thing that happens is so wild and insane that we just need to walk you through it step by step.
I want to play the music that's going on. This is going to be similar to the last scene where I gave a little bit of a description while you were listening to the scene take place. So here's the music. So Melanie is on the beach. She's sitting on a towel, and she has approximately 5 or 6 different giant pills of bottles, and she is sitting there and just downing them all. Melanie is attempting to commit suicide. We're led to believe that Melanie Beck is committing suicide because of the trauma that's taken place. However, I'm a little bit confused by that because she has amnesia.
Yeah, that's a great point.
If she doesn't remember any of this stuff, why is she so distraught?
Yeah, did she get amnesia and she instantly became this like suicidal maniac? I don't understand that. That's right.
So this crazy guy pulls up onto the side of the beach. He looks down and he sees her downing all these pills. And he runs down the beach, kicks the pills from out of her hand, picks her up and shakes her and says,
What in the hell do you think you're doing?
Committing suicide.
Well, you gotta drink seawater if you're gonna throw up all that shit you've been taking.
Are you crazy?
So he scoops her up by the arms. By the way, this is still the same consistent music that's playing. He grabs her by the arms, picks her entire body up, and takes her down to the water and proceeds to start just dunking her in the water. If he didn't know any better, he was trying to drown her. Picking her up, putting her underwater, picking her up and putting her underwater over and over and over. Like I would say, I'm not exaggerating, he does this about probably like 8 times.
He's aggressively holding her head under the water. Like this is incredible.
And he's handling her in such a way, like in such an aggressive way that I had to rewind this a few times to see if that was a dummy that he was using. It's not a dummy.
No. Yeah, that's incredible. I thought that too because she is like completely just like limp this entire scene. He drags her around and he throttles her hard under the water, just like forcefully smashes her face into sand is what it seems. This poor lady. I cannot believe they did this to this poor lady. This is insane that this is in a movie. And this guy is apparently trying to help her out. Like, what?
He's not handling her with care at all.
No, like the Heimlich, I can understand that. Or like chest compressions, you know what I mean? But like actively trying to drown somebody who just ingested a bunch of alcohol and a ton of pills? What is wrong with this man?
Well, however, he is successful and he does manage to make her vomit up all of the pills that she took.
After this crazy scene happens here, there is a scene where the night killer shows up and he does kill somebody, but the whole thing is so stupid and wacky that it doesn't really matter anyways. So we'll just plow ahead because the next important thing that happens here, well, at least important to Tim and I, is there's going to be a scene here where Melanie now, she wakes up and I guess she's in an apartment now. It doesn't seem like she's in her house. This is also confusing to me. I guess it's
a hotel because we see the clerk and stuff later on.
Oh, okay. So it's a hotel. That's right. Okay. So I guess she's in the hotel. I got so confused in this damn movie. But she's at a hotel now and she wakes up and she panics. And she tries to get out of this door. And again, this creepy guy who we should mention, his name is Axel. he shows up, and again, we're just going to let you listen to what this guy has to say to Melanie.
So for this scene, we're going to do another descriptive video for you.
Fried chicken and french fries.
Axel is holding a box of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
But I don't guess you're too hungry.
Axel's laying on the bed with his chicken.
Oh, I almost forgot.
Axel goes through Melanie's purse.
Valium. Syringe. A gun. Barbiturates. Everything you always needed to kill yourself with, but were afraid to ask for.
Wow, Melanie is hardcore partying. How did she get out of the hospital and have all these drugs immediately? Where the hell did she rob a cabinet inside the hospital?
I'm going to say that she smuggled those drugs out of the hospital when she left.
This lady is a suicidal amnesiac who apparently just is a top-notch drug smuggler.
So I'm going to give you a slight warning for this scene that there is a lot of talk of suggested suicide here. Now, this scene is just bonkers crazy. So Axel and Melanie are laying on the bed, and Axel is basically implying to Melanie that she wants to kill herself, and she should. However, Melanie says to Axel, it doesn't matter because I'm already dead. Which, again, she has amnesia. I don't know where this is all coming from. But anyways, he says, well, go ahead, then do it. And he grabs the gun, and she takes it from him and says, why don't I kill you? And then he takes the gun from her and puts it in her mouth, and she's like crying her eyes out. And he actually pulls the trigger, but the gun wasn't loaded. So he scares the hell out of her just to prove a point that she's not ready to actually kill herself.
So this is apparently her gun, though, isn't it? If this is her purse, wouldn't she know that there's no bullets in the gun?
Well, you know, her amnesia seems to work in very weird ways, so I'll give her that pass that she didn't remember.
There's an amazing part in this whole thing, too, where she puts the gun to her head and she pretends like she's going to threaten, she's threatening to, like, kill herself or whatever. And Axel is staring her right in the face, and his hand slowly comes up, and he's got a piece of KFC in his hand, and he takes a bite out of it. He's smiling. And he's talking to her. He's like encouraging her to kill herself.
And he goes,
I shouldn't be laughing.
Fried chicken.
My God, what is going on in this movie?
So this entire scene basically just ends with no suicides, fortunately. And Melanie Beck is still very upset, and it's unfortunate this poor girl is being traumatized again. We don't know what happened to her the first time because they didn't show us that scene. However, we can see that this girl is going through a lot.
I'm not going to give anything away here, but Axel pulls out a knife in front of Melanie, and he's like, I'm going to go let off some steam. And he just storms out of the room, okay? Closes the door, apparently locks it from the outside. And she runs to the door. Again, with all the locks, you could see on the inside of the door. And apparently she's now locked inside this hotel and can't get out, okay? So the next scene that happens here is we're at an aquarium here. I guess we're at an aquarium here at nighttime with somebody who I guess is supposed to be a scientist. And she's talking to a security guard. And she said she's going to go check a valve real quick. And they're going to close up the place, and that's going to be the night. So what happens is again, she meets this guy, the night killer, this really weird, creepy, horny guy who's not Freddy Krueger. And he chases her around the aquarium, and unfortunately, she falls prey to the night killer.
So we're back to the hotel room again. Axel has arrived back to greet Melanie. She is sleeping, but he wakes her up. And he tells her that they're going to play a game. He proceeds to start cutting strips of the bed sheets and ties Melanie to the bedposts. He gets on top of Melanie, and he basically starts trying to be sexual with her. And she screams at him, "Fuck you." Axel, we learn here that he does not like swearing. And he tells her, he says, "No cussing." And he smacks her in the face. He's relentless, and he's still trying to kiss her. And she says, "You're a pig, you son of a bitch." And then he smacks her even harder. And he says, "I told you not to use language like that." So what is with this guy? He's eating fried chicken. He's keeping girls captive. At this point in the movie, I think that we're supposed to believe that he is the night killer. And he really hates swearing. It's a really odd choice of morals for this guy.
This man is about to, again, R-word this lady. That's what it really looks like, and he has a problem with swearing.
Yes.
That's where he chose to draw the line, morally. All right, like, what is going on in this movie? And, like, again, the fact that all this is going on, we should just, again, if you're listening to this, you should just remember this stuff for later, because I hope somebody can make some sense of this.
So nothing comes of that scene. He leaves. Now we have two scenes mashed together. On one side, we have a news report with this savvy detective and a doctor who is treating Melanie Beck. And the doctor and detective inform the reporters that Melanie Beck has been kidnapped and that they're concerned that the killer might have her because she wouldn't necessarily recognize the killer. But they make it clear that if enough trauma is inflicted on her, she might then recognize the face of the killer. They're also worried that if she recognizes his face, then she might be killed as well. On the other side, while this news report is going on, Melanie Beck is sitting in front of a mirror and doing her makeup. And she basically transforms herself into 1990 Tina Turner.
That's not bad. That's a very good description.
Yeah, she looks just like Tina Turner in the music video. What's love got to do with it?
And I mean, I guess that's kind of what she's saying here a little bit, because she's got this gun and she's writing a bunch of stuff on the mirror and she just fires the gun at the wall in this motel. And Axel comes upstairs and he, I guess like he's just drinking out of a paper bag on the stairs with first. And he hears, which is like, what? It's like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. This guy is drinking in the stairs in this cheap motel. And he hears the gun and he goes upstairs and he grabs her and he's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" So the manager comes up and he's like, "What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you shooting a gun off in the motel at 12 o'clock in the afternoon?" And he just kind of shoves some money in his glasses and just shoves him out the door and says, "See you later, bro."
So now the police officer and the detective are pondering over whether they've gone too far with their plan in their efforts to try and track down this night killer. And the detective says that it's gotten out of hand and he wants it to stop right now. Right after that, the hotel receptionist that was paid off sees a newspaper with Melanie Beck's picture on the front of it and realizes that she's being held captive up in the hotel room. And he calls 911 and the detective is on his way to the hotel.
So once this hard-boiled detective jumps off in the squad car and rolls up to this no-tell motel, he runs inside and he sees the hotel manager and he says, "Where are they?" And the hotel manager says, "I thought there was a reward." And we just got to play you a clip of what this cop says in response to him. This is amazing because, I know I mentioned earlier, this is my favorite character in this movie. This delivery right here. We got to play this.
"It's room 70. Here. Wasn't there a reward?"
You want a reward? I'll give you 10 seconds to get the out of here. I'll rearrange that rat face of yours. You understand?
Is that... Imagine that you have information to solve a murder or a kidnapping or something, and you phone the police because you want that reward, and they basically just tell you off.
To be fair, I guess that's not the right time to negotiate a reward when the potential hostage is upstairs right there at that second. You know what I mean? So
That's very, no, you're right. That's true. Yeah, you're right.
I just love that line now. I think that this guy is so funny, man. He's delivering those lines so hard. It is so good. So the manager tells this cop what room they're in, and he runs upstairs and goes into the hotel room. And again, this actor is just amazing because he doesn't look in any of the rooms under the bed and the closet, anything. He just barges into the hotel room, doesn't see anybody in the general vicinity, and just stares off perplexed as like, where the heck could they be? And again, this guy Axel and Melanie now, who she's dressed up like a Russian spy, they come up behind him and Axel just clubs him in the head with a gun and knocks him out.
Yep.
Like this cop just came in and stared in the corner and was like, "Where the hell are they? I don't understand this. Like, what kind of detective is this?"
Now we're going back to Sherman, the family friend who is looking after Melanie Beck's daughter. And he is very distraught because he knows that Melanie Beck has been captured by this serial killer. Sherman takes a gun, loads it, and his wife says, "Why are you so obsessed with that whore?" Which is like, where did that come from? By the way, his wife also says, "You shouldn't be going out and solving crimes. We need to look after our daughter." And he's like, "She's not our daughter. That's Melanie Beck's daughter." He's totally right. Like his wife is having some kind of a complex where she thinks that she's the mother of this girl that they've had for like, I don't know, 2 weeks, if that.
Where did they put that in, that this lady just wants this kid now?
So despite his wife's shenanigans, he decides to go and save Melanie Beck. So Sherman to the rescue. Axel and Melanie Beck are out and about on the street, and they stop at a payphone where Axel calls the detective. And he says, "Look, you started all this. I'm going to finish it." While he's on the phone, Melanie Beck sees a newspaper article with her face and decides to run. And by the way, Paul, what kind of hat is she wearing? What would you call that?
This is why I said she was dressed like a Russian spy, because it's almost like one of those puffy kind of like, whatever you call them, like sable kind of hats or something.
Yeah, like a puffy fedora.
Yeah, or it's also kind of like that painter's hat that the Joker wears in the 1989 Batman movie. It's kind of like that, but fur. It's also like something that Prince would wear as well too. And she's got a fur coat on that's like, it's kind of gray. It looks like it's a chinchilla coat, or I don't know what this is.
While she's running away, it looks very funny because just the outfit that she's wearing is, and this hat is just like bobbing all over the place, and you can see her struggling to keep the hat on, which is hilarious in itself because she's running away from a killer. But you can tell that this actor is actually very concerned with not losing her wardrobe while she's acting. So she's running away. She can hardly walk or run because she's in high heels or something, and she's trying to balance this hat on her head. So she's running like a Muppet down the street.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's right. And what happens is that guy Sherman rolls up in his car now, and he throws Melanie and then says, "Hey, I'm going to take you home." And he gets her out of there apparently in the nick of time, because it looks like that guy Axel comes around the corner screaming, and it looks like Melanie is safe for now, I guess.
We are approaching the finale of the movie now. Melanie Beck is home with Sherman, and Sherman holds up the keys and he says, "Don't worry. I'm going to lock all the doors and make sure nobody else gets in." Just like the killer said. So Melanie Beck appears to be alone in the house now because Sherman has locked all the doors and she doesn't see him anywheres. She wanders around the house and looks out the window, and she sees Sherman get out of his car across the street and go to the payphone that we saw earlier in the movie. And he picks up the phone, dials a number, and suddenly her phone is ringing. And it's the killer, and he says that he's come back to finish the job, presumably because he's still very horny. She hangs up the phone, runs around to make sure the doors are locked. The phone rings again, and it's the killer. While she's talking on the phone to the killer, just like earlier in the movie, we see the killer in the house behind her, and he reveals himself. It's been Sherman the whole time. How did he lock all the doors, go across the street, use the payphone, come back, and get into the house again? I don't understand that.
I am so confused, Tim. I am so confused. I don't know. Was that him in the payphone? I mean, it could be him. It looked.
Well, no, 100%. Earlier in the movie, you couldn't tell who it was. But at this point in the movie, you can clearly see that it's him.
How did he lock the door? Because a car drives up to the payphone. So how did he?
He is in the car. He drove the car to the payphone.
How did he lock the door? Okay, get this trench coat and put it all on. He took the red pill, and then he drove his car around the corner to the payphone across the street, called her up, okay, then ran across the street again somehow, I guess through the back door, called her on her second line, or from her second line in the house, I guess, and again told her how he couldn't wait 5 minutes, and he's now going to attack her again. How did all of that happen?
So Sherman here proceeds to basically reveal everything that's been going on. And he informs us on what we missed out earlier in the movie between the confrontation of the Night Killer and Melanie. So what happened was Sherman took off his mask and she knew who he was. He then proceeded to, I guess, rape her and tie her to the bed and traumatize her. We don't actually see that, but the movie is suggesting that's what happened. And then he has this idea that instead of killing her himself, he's going to set her up with so much trauma that she is going to end up killing herself anyways. So this was his plan the whole time. The amnesia that she endured was on purpose from him. That's what we're supposed to believe.
Oh my God.
And I need to mention the complete change in personality and tone of Sherman here. So prior to this scene, every time we've seen him, he's talking like a perfectly normal person. Once he reveals himself here, he sounds like the bad guy or a villain from like the 60s Spider-Man cartoon. Like he goes right into like Disney villain mode. It's really bizarre and it's kind of funny.
Sounds like Marge Simpson.
A little bit, yes.
So now he's got a knife again and he is ready to kill her, it looks like, you know? However, this is kind of like that 1989 Batman where Kim Basinger sort of starts seducing the Joker, you know? And Melanie here kind of starts seducing Axel. And she's unbuttoning his shirt and kissing him now. And she's getting all hot and heavy with this guy. And she's like, oh, I love this. This is so awesome for some reason. And she reaches up around his pants in a very suggestive manner and reaches out and pulls out a knife.
Stabs him right in the dick.
Yeah. And again, this looks like this guy's got ketchup spilt on his crotch now, or some Kool-Aid or something. He's grabbing it, which is so funny. And he's just making this hilarious face and doing this like Herbert the Pervert from Family Guy voice, and pulls up a gun, and he's about to shoot Melanie Beck. And again, out of nowhere, okay, like a bolt of lightning, Axel comes diving through the window like a superhero, and he bounces off a couch in slow motion and pulls out a gun, and he shoots Sherman in the chest like 8 times. This is insane what goes on here. Just like bang, 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 bang. It just lets him go on this guy. And Sherman falls over and he is dead.
It's funny when he's falling down too, because like he gets shot like 8 times, but then he still like collapses to the floor in slow motion as if he was just like shot once or something. If you're like us when we first watched this movie, you're probably wondering what the hell is going on here.
I've seen this twice and I'm still wondering what the hell goes on this.
There's still a big chunk of bad movie left. So we're going to tackle this all at the very end, and we're just going to plow through to the end now. The doctor and the detective show up, and they explain what their strategy was. And we will get into that in a second, right after we take care of this last part. So now we're at Christmas morning. Melanie Beck is in bed with her husband, Axel. Okay? We're going to explain all that here in a little bit. But Melanie Beck is in bed with her husband, Axel, and Clarissa, their daughter, is there as well. And it's time to open up Christmas gifts. And she runs downstairs to open a gift by herself. The first gift that she chooses to open is the gift that was given to her by Sherman at the very beginning of the movie.
Wow, I didn't even realize that. Oh my God. That's a great observation. I'm either dumb or like, wow.
Paul, it took 5 viewings of this movie for me to clue into that. And by the way, it's only going to make this even more confusing by the end. But here we go. Clarissa takes the gift into her bedroom, opens it up in slow motion, takes out all these little pieces of styrofoam and stuff. We don't see what the gift is yet. The camera pans over to a mirror, and we're just seeing an empty room until out of nowhere pops up little Clarissa, and she's wearing the mask that the Night Killer wore throughout this entire movie. And she's laughing at the camera, talking right at us. And she says, ha ha ha, Mrs. Beck, I'm back and I'm gonna kill you. And then she laughs in her little girl voice. And then it says, the end, the Night Killer. That's the movie. It's over. All right, Paul, where do you want to start?
Well, okay, I think we should explain what the cops and totally not Dr. Loomis said at the end of the movie. because I can see some of the logic in this, but I'm confused. So at the end of the movie, when Sherman was shot about 20 times, okay, this guy got RoboCopped at the end of the movie here. After that happened, these paramedics and there's police cars and like news vans that just show up out of nowhere. There's like 40 cars that show up and like 100 people that come out of nowhere. And they're asking the detective what's going on. I don't know how these people knew this all just happened, but they're asking the doctor what's going on. So the doctor says that it was basically an experiment almost, I guess, that they used these two as guinea pigs, and one person was in on this experiment and the other person didn't know anything about this. So I guess in order to catch the night killer, since Melanie was the only person that survived the night killer's attack and didn't remember what he looked like, they decided that they would use her as bait to try to capture the night killer. And her husband knew about this, and he was in on this and was going along with this. Is that correct? Is that what's going on here?
You're close. So you're close. You had everything right leading up to just last part. So yes, the doctor and the cop and Axel. Axel is a police officer.
Yeah, he's in on this. Yes, and that's the other part too, is they say he was kicked off the force, okay, and he's apparently going to get a promotion. This guy is a police officer? At what point did they ever say that?
So we were kept in the dark. As viewers of this movie, you're kept in the dark. The reveal is that Axel is actually a police officer. And the strategy that the detective and the doctor had was they were going to facilitate Melanie Beck experiencing the same trauma that she went through with the night killer, in hopes that that would revive her memory and that she would be able to identify the night killer.
Oh my God.
Because since she came out of it with amnesia, she was the only one left alive that had seen the killer's face. So, yes, this kidnapping of her being locked in the hotel room, tied up, beaten for swearing, threatened suicide, all of that. That was her husband doing that to her to revive her memory of the night killer.
Oh. Serious? Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so this is I've seen this movie now 3 times. And I did not understand that. I thought they were using her as live bait to capture the night killer, which to me I was like, why would you want her to go through this whole experience again to try to identify this guy?
Because that's what it seems like. So when they left the hotel room and Axel went on the payphone and called the detectives, and they said, you know what, this isn't working anymore. We're going to go to the next level. So they let her go, and that's when they used her as bait.
But she ran away because she saw the newspaper. Okay, like I'm confused about this. So like, why were the police dumbfounded as they didn't know where this guy and this girl were, and why are they even trying to pretend to hide for her? Because it's not like she knew this manhunt was going on this whole time either, right?
So you notice they disclosed that only in television reports. So they were trying to gaslight the killer.
Okay, wait. So they were trying to get him to attack people?
I don't know why, Paul. Look, this doesn't make sense. I know, but that's everything.
I know. Yeah, that's why so like
sort of. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. Hell, Paul. Her husband is a police officer, and he's attacking her left and right. So I wouldn't put. I don't think that strategy is for them to try and provoke this killer to kill other people is like beneath them, right? I think that they would try and do that.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm so confused about that. And like another thing that confused me in this movie too is at no point did she ever ask this guy Axel, like, who are you? If she has amnesia, right? You're just going along with this. You go like, why do you want to do this to me? What's going on here?
You remember when they were at the hotel room, the very last time they were in the hotel room, when she did herself up like Tina Turner, when he got back, she said, I remember you. I love you.
But she was lying to him though, wasn't she? Because she would have ran away. She would have, if that was her husband and she remembered her husband and he was a normal guy, then she wouldn't have run away later.
But he wasn't a normal guy, right? she didn't want to be around him in the movie established at the very beginning that she didn't want to be around him in the first place. He was fired from the force. He had some kind of a downfall and he was at the bar and she didn't want to be around him.
You're totally right with that factually as how this movie plays out. But at the same time, at the end of the movie, they're laughing and they're having fun like they have a normal marriage. And why did this guy Sherman want to kill her? Like, they don't explain that either, why Sherman wants to murder her. It's not like he's like, I want your kid. You know what I mean? Because Sherman's been murdering and assaulting a ton of people, like 5-6 people in this movie. So why is he even doing that?
They don't really establish much of a motive for the Night Killer.
No. Why is this guy doing this?
So you have to keep in mind, not that it really makes the movie any much better, but you have to keep in mind that all of those extra kill scenes that we mentioned, like the very beginning of the movie and in between, aren't actually part of the movie.
Yes. Okay, you're 100% right, Tim. But again, if we go back to the ending of the movie, Axel, okay, jumps through the window and he shoots this guy. There was a scene where this guy was like, I did something to you, right? And he did those voices, unless they brought them back for that, I guess. Maybe he brought them back for that. I don't know.
Yeah, now that you mention it, just about every scene where he has the mask, I bet that was probably an extra part into the movie.
Unless it was just scenes with this guy like going crazy on her and it was just that hotel stuff that you saw, like the cops were in on this, right? So the cops knew that there's supposed to be a night killer. There is some guy who's murdering people and he assaulted her. So like that, I feel like that, at least the idea of a killer attacking somebody and hurting her, that was built into the original story, it seems like, right? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe that part was all created. But then, like, did they only use 20 minutes of this guy's original footage and then they put the rest of this together?
It can't be all the mask scenes that were added, because now we need to talk about the very end of the movie. When her daughter puts on the mask that was gifted to her by Sherman at the very beginning of the movie. What in the world what does that mean? Is that trying to imply that this mask is like, the mask itself is like capable of possession or something, and he like gave it to her to pass on to become the Night Killer? Does he have several of these masks, by the way? Because he gave that to her in a box at the very beginning of the movie and proceeded to wear the mask throughout the rest of the movie.
And the cop also found one at a crime scene too. The cop had a mask in a bag. There's like 4 of these masks.
He must work at a Halloween store.
Yeah, I guess so, right? Like it's what is this? I wish I could piece this movie together. I've tried. I really felt like I tried to take some time with this movie and watch it and digest it and think about everything that was going on in it and try to make sense with this. And I cannot, for the life of me, understand any of this or why any of this happened or like, because I knew that this was 2 stories pieced together, or they shot this movie, I should say, and then they went out and reshot some stuff and shoehorned it in. And you can see, at least I think I can see spots where it looks like they just like, they just put the stuff in there, just the extra stuff to make it a slasher movie. But I'm still confused as to what the original story was supposed to be with this, other than this lady apparently had amnesia and I guess there's a killer. And I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know, but that's it. This is a wonderful mess.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a fair critique of this movie. This is one of those movies that if you get past some of the weird suicide stuff and the over the top nudity, this is a really funny, wacky movie.
Personally, as a fan of watching bad movies, this one was one of the greatest surprises that's ever happened. Like, just from, like we mentioned, this minute after minute, as soon as you start this movie, it just gets crazy. And just when you think it can't get crazier, it does. And it keeps going.
This is a dark horse pick for like really good bad movies. This is like when we were talking about The Fanatic, this is like next level bad movie. There's no other way to explain this.
Like I said, this one's a gem.
Yeah, and I feel like, we could probably keep going on with this movie in the same vein forever, because there is just layer of onion-like insanity that goes on in this movie. But I think this is probably a good spot to leave it. What do you think?
I think that's a good place to stop it.
All right, so that's it for this episode. We're just gonna let Axel again take you out with another classic note from this episode.
I got molested in the little boy's room.